How's it going? It's Kevin Kenny. Welcome to a brand new edition of the Build Series here live in New York City. And we've got, as our guest today, one half of the nerdcore duo behind the brand new album, the Dewey Decibel System. Please give it up for MC Lars.
Hi, Kevin.
Dude, we have a lot of...
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, pleasure, dude. We got a lot of people that come by with a lot of fits and a lot of looks and a lot of bling, as they say. But we've never had that. Can we get a tight shot on the chain? A gold Zelda. Now, which one is that?
This is the first one, the
Wow.
Legend of Zelda, and it still plays.
No way. You can.
Yeah.
That's a playable game.
Yeah, I made sure that when I put the stuff on the back, I didn't damage the cartridge.
I think that's a bigger flex than the game itself, is that you can still actually play the game.
That's right.
Incredible. Well, I point that out not only because it's so cool, but it's actually kind of at the core, no pun intended, of what you guys do with your music. And I don't think we've ever had a quote-unquote nerdcore act on Build, or at least I haven't spoken to one. What are the origins of that term? What are the origins of that genre?
It's a great question. It started, have you heard of a band called Nerf Herder? They did the theme
No, that sounds awesome.
They did the theme for Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Okay.
Show. They came up with the term because bands from Oxnard called themselves Nardcore. Okay. And so then they were doing like nerdy music. They called it Nerdcore. And then this guy, MC Frontalot, kind of adopted it to apply to hip hop. So it's been around about 20 years, the subgenre.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So what makes something inherently nerdy, in your opinion?
I think it's, well, being nerdy is like not being afraid to be obsessed with things and that might bore your friends, right? Like, I think they're all different types of nerds. And what's interesting now, popular culture has kind of realized that nerds create all the things we love. Like
right.
Comic movies, video games. So I think the term nerd 20 years ago kind of was pejorative, and now it's like a celebrated thing. You know
could you have ever, like you talk about 20 years ago, could you have ever, as a young nerd, if you will, seen pop culture coming around and really like embracing that culture like it has? I mean, I think of brands like the Nerdist, right? Just being huge for this notion. Of course, Marvel just running Hollywood seemingly nowadays. But I mean, this is really wild to now come into your own as an artist and have this pop culture moment.
I think as a DIY artist, I couldn't have grown up in a better time because, you know, I used to play in a punk band and I used to play like a hardcore band. And so learning like the DIY, how to promote your own shows and like market yourself. Then when I discovered hip hop, it was like a natural progression. You know what I mean? Like being the early MySpace days. And I was always a fan of like telling people to torrent my music and steal my music. So it's fortunate, man. I think it's like, we're blessed to live in the times we live in. You just got to make the most of it.
I know you hear a lot, and especially in the music industry, people will like, fawn over yesteryear and how great it was and CD sales. But I think as a music fan, and maybe you can attest to being an artist and a music maker, it's never been a better time because we just have access to everything. We can really nerd out, really, like, on everything. It's really cool.
We're very blessed. There's this book, The Long Tail, that I read a while ago about the idea that as more people have access to media, more people get heard. And so instead of having like this patriarchy of people who are like on top of the, all the controlling the means of information, now we all have a voice. I have a podcast, like my friends have podcasts. We are able to come and talk to people like you. It's dope, man.
Right.
I feel blessed to live when I do.
I would not have a job if it wasn't for that long tail. That's actually a really profound book that you bring it up. I'm a fan of that book as well. I think a guy... Actually, I don't want to get the author wrong, but that's from 2004.
Chris Anderson, right?
Chris Anderson, there you go. I knew it was Chris. I just couldn't get the last name. But that book was written in 2004, and it's so profound. If you read it today, it would be just as relevant as it was then.
It was very prescient. And I think if you read it now, it kind of predicts where things are going now. It's it's really cool.
So you started in hardcore bands, and it kind of leads me to my next question is in terms of when you look back at yourself as an artist and as just a person, what's the first love? Is it sort of nerd culture and all these things that you nerd out about, or is it hip hop? Is it music? Are those parallel things?
That's a great question. For me, it's always music is first, because I think the potential thing with being a nerdcore rapper is like, if you want to rap about a Marvel character, you could go, oh, I'm just going to look up Silver Surfer on Wikipedia and reference his planet. And you want to make sure that the music's good and you're connecting it with your own story. So pop culture and nerdy stuff is important to me, but like, if the music's not good, then it's not going to react with people. That's my theory.
Not so much a nerdcore band, but what comes to mind is I'm a huge Coheed and Cambria fan.
Ooh, I got a story about them.
And they did a cool thing with they've kind of deviated from this in recent releases, but I think like for almost 10 years or maybe even more, they told this story, and the name of the story is escaping right now, but through their music, kind of a lot like what you guys do. And it's kind of neat to see that sort of embrace across genres. You said you were in hardcore bands, and then you somehow discovered hip hop. What allowed you to discover hip hop? What was like the first thing that clicked for you?
I did a semester abroad in England, and I was really into like the Streets and Dizzy Rascal, and I started performing there when I was 20. back in the day when I was in college. But the first rapper I fell in love with, KRS-One, who I got to do a song with.
No way.
That was tight. Shout out to KRS-One.
How'd that come about?
We were both under Universal Publishing.
Okay.
And so I got a list of potential co-writers, and I saw him on there, so I just called him. And he's like, yo, it's KRS. I'm like, KRS, I have an idea for a song. He's like, Lars, this sounds crazy.
Speaking of moments like that, is that the number one most surreal moment you've been able to go through as an artist?
Yeah, that was tight.
Yeah.
And I also got to work with Weird Al. He played accordion on my album.
Oh, that's crazy.
So 2 of my heroes I got to work with, and that's pretty cool, you know? Life is cool.
Yeah, it is really cool to never lose that perspective. Let's talk about the recent release, by the way, the Dewey Decibel System. A big part of this, not to nerd out too much, but it was produced largely in person, right? I think that's a big story when making this music. Wasn't it? You weren't sending files back and forth a lot, right?
Yeah, so Megaran, my good friend Megaran, he and I were in Bushwick for a week, and we recorded at our friend's Brad's house, and we recorded the whole thing together. And often with rap collaborations, you just email the files. But that was cool because we could coach each other on our flows, pick the beats, you know what I mean? Like, we really could make it perfect. And it's 14 songs about our favorite books.
Oh, that's awesome.
All we call it lit hop, like hip hop about literature.
And entirely funded by the Kickstarter campaign, right?
Yeah, so shout out to the Kickstarter fans. That was tight.
Yeah, that's all. Was this the first time you ever went down that road for making an album, funding an album?
No, but you know, the first time I did it, I did a project for the drummer from Coheed and Cambria. He raps as Weird Science.
Okay.
And he was on my label, and so we used it to release his second record.
Oh, no way.
So it's a small world.
So I'm curious though, from the artist side, you know, like if a label is funding a record, you have the label to answer to. What was it like having almost these fans and their expectations to unofficially answer to them funding the record?
I think if you went to Interscope and you were like, yo, Jimmy, I want to make an album, 14 songs about 19th century literature, he'd not let you have the meeting, right? So with the fans, it's just about making sure we took their recommendations. They got all this bonus stuff. So it's cool, man. It's like fun. They always say it's better to have fans than to have a boss, right? Because your fans are your boss, but they love you for what you do.
Yeah.
And I have a great collaborator in my friend Megaran because he works really hard. He's a great rapper. And so it was the first time I'd done a project like that with one person.
Right.
So it was cool.
I want to ask you about a song in here called Walden. And he wrote your lyrics on that song, right?
Yeah.
Explain that creative process and why it went that way.
So he had written a version of the song for a YouTube channel years ago, but it didn't have a chorus.
We actually have him right here.
Oh,
by the
yo,
way,
here
if he wants
comes
to walk
Megaran.
on. Guys, give it up for Megaran.
Megaran, we were just talking about Walden.
Hey, Lars.
Good to see you.
How are you, Kevin?
Pleasure.
Hey, everybody. How you doing?
I like that jacket, man.
Oh, thanks. This is
That's really neat.
Those suits. They do some cool suits.
For sure. Hey, we're actually talking about how you wrote Lars's lyrics for Walden.
Walden. I paid him back because he wrote for me on Ode to a Grecian Urn.
Okay.
So Walden was a great book. I work with an awesome company called Flocabulary. They do great hip hop literature combination stuff. And we had discussed Walden a bunch of times, and I was like, oh, this is perfect. So Walden was a track that I had, I think, pretty much ready. And then maybe it was the first song done for the album.
Yeah.
I think so.
Wow.
And we got to go to Walden Pond and film the video.
I heard about that.
that was cool.
That is so neat.
Beautiful rainy morning. But yeah, it was so calm and peaceful out there. And then they got this great statue of Thoreau, and he perfectly can fit a cell phone in his hand, as we found out.
Really?
So it made for a great moment in our video where you sat the phone in his hand, so it looks like he's like checking his tweets.
Yeah.
You know.
That's awesome. We were talking before about what came first for Lars, if it was this like sort of love for nerdism, if you will, or music. What would you say was for you?
I guess it would be nerdism, but I guess at that time I didn't know necessarily what it was. It was G.I. Joe,
Okay.
Transformers. It was Japanese culture, anime. It was, video games. Then the music from those things became my inspiration to make hip hop.
Interesting.
It's like, well, maybe I can turn this game sound into a beat, or things like that. A game called Battletoads back in the maybe late 80s. When you paused the game, it had this awesome beat. It would go. So I would try to freestyle to that. Like, I'm going to get myself a sandwich, you know? And like,
You were battling.
Yeah, during the pause breaks, we would be, I'll be right back, I'll be right back, you know? And I never told that story before. But yeah, like, I think that was kind of how it started, just hearing really cool beats in different elements, in different media, and thinking, how could this be put into music? Right. And that was how it happened for me.
Was there a first time you recognized what you liked about that music in a popular artist's music?
Well, I guess Pac-Man Fever was a real big hit in the 80s. And so being able to turn on the radio and hear the waka, 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 you know. So hearing those sounds let me know that they could actually translate well to musical productions.
Right.
And I think it kind of got some wheels turning at a young age.
Oh, absolutely. Now, there are certain songs you guys do that I think are really cool where you almost like rap back and forth. It's almost like a call and response. What is the creative process like writing a song like that is, I mean, so collaborative where you each have parts? How do you write something like that?
Well, like the intro song, which we'll perform, is us going back and forth. We were sitting at the table at our friend's studio, and it was fun because we were thinking of it together. Like, we were freestyling and like thinking, okay, what authors can we make puns about? Who do we want to reference on this album? And so one of my favorite lines is the haiku line.
Oh, yeah. So it's just a play on words where I said, get your hands high. Cool. You know, so it's a haiku. So
and we rap it as a haiku.
Yes, the line is actually in a haiku
That's
format.
nerdy.
So very nerdy. You have to pick it apart to get it. But yeah, we would write, and I'd say, okay, my rhyme is going to be build. Now, what are you going to do off of that? And then he would write and tell me his end rhyme, and then I'd rhyme off of that until we had a full, sentence almost.
Yeah. What's I meant to ask you about the tour you guys just did, right? You did something really cool where you played the album that was turning 10, I understand, right next to the new album, right? Mm. So I'm sure over 10 years you guys evolve a lot, but then it's probably never more present or obvious when you play these songs back to back. When you played them back to back with the new stuff, what stood out to you guys?
Well, I think we got lucky on the UK tour because Lars had a backing band that was incredible, ruled by Raptors, who had learned all of his older music and played it perfectly, maybe even better than his original productions, dare I say. And so it gave it a whole new life. I don't know, Lars, what do you think?
Yeah, that was fun because they learned the songs from scratch because usually we have a lot of samples. So it was fun to have this juxtaposition of the new stuff with the fire verses and then the punk rock older stuff. So it was cool. The UK has always been really good to us. We go there every year and we love them.
An appreciator, I think you can say, the UK is of eclectic music, of a lot of different genres. You're talking about punk right there. Bowling for Soup worked on this record, Jared, right?
Yes.
How did that come about?
One of my first tours was opening for them. Okay. And Jared had a label called Crappy Records, and they put out my second album. And I just emailed him, like, Jared, we need you on this ska song. And he delivered.
That's awesome.
You opened for them, right?
No, I don't think I have. Oh. No. I met Jared once, though.
He was tight?
He's tight.
That's tight.
You are a Guinness World Record holder.
Oh, snap. Yes. I have an interesting record that they had to email me and tell me that I had. I had no idea. The most video game tribute songs created.
No way.
And released commercially. So based on a particular game, which was Mega Man, my favorite game, as you can see.
Rocking it.
Love his music. So I've been just tinkering with Mega Man sounds and remaking and remixing those for 10 years now. Wow. Which led to a record by a long margin, apparently. They were like, how many Mega Man songs do you have? And I was like, how much time do you have? And so I wound up telling them, and I think it was like 140. And they're like, yeah, that's definitely a record. So they had me come out to London, and we did a great photo shoot and live stream, and they handed me a plaque, and it was an awesome moment. That was really, really cool.
You're also the first rapper ever to be, I think, officially licensed by Capcom, by a
video game company. That was pretty strange. Again, just doing what I would normally do, rapping, sampling. In hip-hop, we come up on sampling. Lars sampled a lot of punk records. I sampled a lot of video games coming up. We didn't always have the means to go and find those artists to ask for permission. So sometimes it was like just hoping they'd be okay with it. And with music, it was like that. And then Capcom one day called me or emailed me and said, hey, did you know that this is kind of illegal? And I'm like, I really didn't mean anything by it. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And they were like, well, it's actually kind of cool. So come to our office and let's talk about it. And we figured it out, and somehow maybe a couple months of paperwork and back and forth, and they were like, all right, you are now licensed, you are clear to utilize our music in any way possible because we love the music you create. It's clean, it's positive, keep doing it. And I was like, am I the first to do this? And they were like, oh, I guess you are. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. The second rapper to be licensed by Capcom is Drake. You might have heard of him.
Wait, is he really?
He's on the rise. Yeah, a long time ago. Well, a couple years ago, him and Lil Wayne did a tour that was sponsored by Capcom and had video games and it was like Lil Wayne versus Drake.
That's
and
right.
you could tap the buttons to give them power on stage. It was kind of cool.
Wow. Well, I've not thought about that in a while. That's really cool, though.
Yeah. I'm an interesting answer to a trivia question.
Yeah, no, but I almost think of it as like a sports analogy. Like you're like a Nike sponsored athlete. You know what I mean? In the world of nerd
That
culture,
sounds dope.
nerdcore. Yeah.
Thank you.
There you go. You can use that. Lars, I wanted to ask you about a song that I know means a lot to you, and it comes from a very personal place called 23. And I understand you're retiring this song, 23.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, so 23 is a song about a friend of mine who took his life, and one of my best friends from college. And we wrote it to raise some money for the AFSP, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, because I wanted people to know that the stigma of depression is something that we need to be able to talk about. And my friend was dealing with a lot of things that I think he had trouble communicating with. So I wrote him a song about how it felt to me to lose one of my good friends. And over the years, I've gotten so many emails and people who've come up to me and they said, Lars, I've been in a dark place. Hearing that song makes me realize how that might kind of affect my friends and family. And so it was a really powerful thing. And my friend's mom wrote a book. I recently had her on my podcast. And we played it in the UK, and it's a heavy song because it's about the stories about me getting the news that he died and going to see his family. And mental health is such an important issue, and I think there's ways to spread the word around it. But that song, I feel like, it's a heavy song to perform. So it was like we retired that song. Yeah, that's interesting. You knew that. That's cool.
Yeah.
You knew that.
I was just curious. If you don't mind me asking, is that at the time you lost your friend, at the time you wrote the song, did you, as an artist, find it easier to sort of articulate yourself and what you were going through in the form of a rap or in the form of a song than, say, just in conversation?
Yeah, because it was hard to explain that feeling of guilt, like I wish I could have been there for my friend, and that feeling of surprise and not knowing what was going to be next. And originally I wanted to sample Death Cab's I Will Follow You Into the Dark, because I remember listening to that song and just like the first time I ever really cried. So I did a version of that beat, but I was like, oh, I can't, I won't be able to clear this, and like maybe I should do something new. So I co-wrote with my friend Brendan from Wheatus and this guy James from a UK band called Busted, James Bourne. And we wrote the song in Long Island, and I'm really glad I included it because it's like a beautiful tribute to my friend. And when we play it live, I would project pictures of his face, and rest in peace to my friend Patrick, because I miss him. And I think about, I was 10 years ago, like when I wrote that song, now what he'd be doing, and I know he wouldn't have made the same choice again.
Right.
So, yeah, thanks for asking about that.
No, of course. And it's great that you put it in song, right? Because then it can be paid forward, right? You talk about these fans that reach out to you, so that's amazing. Also love that you know Busted and work with Busted.
Yeah,
I have a beef with the Jonas Brothers because I think the Jonas Brothers stole a lot of Busted songs, but we'll get into that later.
Whoa, Busted.
Let's turn it over to actually Twitter first. Foremost, let's get to first fan question comes from @jhayes88 for MC Lars and Mega Ran. Is there a video game and/or Mega Man song you love that you have yet to write a track for?
What's up, Jay Hayes? Can I go first, or you want to go first?
Yeah, you got it.
I mean, I really love Bart vs. the Space Mutants for NES. I've always wanted to write a song about that story of that and sample that music. And whether Matt Groening would clear that sample or not, well, that's to be determined. But that's on my list of songs I want to do.
Very cool.
Nice. I really love Metal Gear Solid. The games are great. The story is a little bit confusing, but I would love to dig into it a little bit and make a song. It'd probably have to be like an 8-minute song because it's quite a story. But I really love the game a lot. It's one of the first games that got me back into gaming. There was just moments where I jumped in and out, but I think in college, one of the Metal Gear Solids is what got me back onto the consoles. So that's one that I would do for sure.
That's cool. I always get Metal Gear Solid and Twisted Metal mixed up.
They're very
Twisted Metal
different.
is the one with the clown, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Was
okay.
it Sweet Tooth? The cars are
Yeah, what was the point of that game?
blowing
It was
each
like,
other up.
Yeah.
It's a crazy game.
Metal Gear is probably far better. Let's get to the next studio audience question. It'll come from right over here.
Hi, I have a question from our site, buildseries.com. One of your fans wants to know, what is your favorite song to perform live and why?
Wow. You go first.
I have a song called Infinite Lives. It's a really fun one to perform. I do this thing where everybody kind of waves their hands side to side, and it gets everybody together. Also, I think the message is important, and it came from when I used to teach. I resigned to make music, and I felt so bad about like not being able to see my kids and see them graduate and be able to check in on them. But I had one of my favorite students come up to me after class and was like, you know, Mr. J, you're actually kind of teaching us a really great lesson. Even though you're leaving, it's in chasing your dream and following and doing what you believe in and sticking to your guns. And that really touched me. And so I thought, wow. And he said, you know what? We're always going to have those lessons that you taught us. We're always going to have those moments you made us laugh. They'll never go anywhere. So don't think that you're not teaching us because you're not here. And I was like, oh, that was really deep for a 12-year-old. And so I thought about the concept of a video game having infinite lives where you die, you come right back. And just let me know that death or retirement or quitting is not the end, because you got those lessons and those words and those kind things that you've said that will live on way beyond our physical bodies. So infinite lives for me.
My favorite song to play is called Flow Like Poe, and it connects like 19th century poetry with modern hip hop and all the technical elements. And I really love, like Mega Ran, I love to teach also. So it's fun to teach people about anti-transcendentalism through rap. So that's fun.
Dude, you played that in Nashville, do you remember? And you
Oh,
like
yeah.
went outside and you like went up on, like it was like we're at a hotel playing and there's probably a pool. You didn't like get in the pool area.
No.
But it was like on chairs and it was great.
With the wireless mic, because you could hear the PA from outside.
Yes,
That
so
was
everyone
like-
came outside. It was awesome.
Nashville, of all places, is such a cool town.
Nashville's great.
That's awesome. Now, I understand you guys are going to perform for us, I've been told.
True.
Cool. How many songs are we getting?
Well, we got 3.
We got 3 songs and a short intro.
Okay, wow. So like 3.5.
Yeah.
Kind of at home. If you're watching us live at buildseries.com or on social media, stick around for that. If not, guys, we're out of time. But thank you so much for coming by. MC Lars and Mega Ran, everybody.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.
y'all.